Pleased to be joined now by the one, the only, the legendary, the supremely handsome, supremely talented. You can read his 2022 NFL Draft Guide. It is pinned to the top of his Twitter account. That's at Connor NFL Draft. It is the one and only Connor Livesay. Connor, happy Mock Draft Monday. We are the only people to use that verbiage across the world.
What do we have? This one and one more left before the draft, right?
That's right. Very exciting times. Two mock drafts left. We're coming off last week of the one we liked the most. We traded back. And just before we get started, Jerry Jones spoke a couple of days after we did our mock draft and mentioned trading up. Now, I know you wrote about this at bloggingtheboys.com, talking about the idea of trading up, defining that as moving closer to the number one overall pick, higher up in the draft. Sometimes people get caught up on those words, but our own Danny Phantom wrote at Blog of the Boys how Jerry might have meant trading back, at least how we define that. He did mention Travis Frederick as an example, which was a case of Dallas moving back. So we could do whatever we want. We can move up, we can move down, but back does seem to be the play, again, as evidenced by our mock draft last week.
Yeah, it was tough because he mentioned Travis Frederick, but then he talked about being at the back of every round, So it's like he talked kind of out of both sides of his mouth because he brought up Travis Frederick.
That
But
would never be the case with Jerry Jones.
yeah, so who knows what he was trying to say. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's so tough because I think in round one, you would prefer a trade back, and then in round two, you probably prefer a trade up. So maybe they are talking about doing both, trading back to get more capital and trading up in the second or third to get a player they don't think will make it to them at 56 or 88.
And so there's no confusion on our end. When we say trade back, we mean to become larger in number, move further away. To trade up means to move up. You're being impatient if you want to trade up. That's how we define those terms. Connor, today we're going to be using the Draft Networks simulator. We had whoopsie-daisy last time that we tried to do this. We lost our first attempt. Nobody will ever get to hear the conversation we had about the Houston Astros that day, which is why I wore this shirt. Not just the fact that it's opening day at Minute Maid. You yourself went in and caught some baseball over the weekend, the lone win that the Yankees had in Baltimore. So you must be feeling good, I imagine, having lost the series to the Orioles.
Yeah, the Orioles are just really good, one of the best baseball teams in Major League Baseball this year. So it's just you gotta you take some of those blows against really really talented baseball teams.
Sure. Okay. So
We should preface by saying I don't think we can trade on the Draft Network simulator. So we'll probably have to stay and pick today, which we've traded, I think, on our last two. So this is probably a good, let's just stay and see what comes to a scenario.
Right. Well, let's go ahead and start. I've clicked start. There we go. Okay, just making sure the computer wasn't freaking out on me. Aiden Hutchinson, the number one overall pick. Malik Willis going 2 here to the Lions. That would be a lot of fun. Kyle Hamilton becomes a New York Giant. That's a bit of a bummer. Let's see. Derek Stingley Jr. goes to Washington. Jermaine Johnson at Baltimore. Drake London makes it to the Eagles. Kenny Pickett goes to New Orleans. Trent McDuffie, the second Eagles pick, and Trevor Penning, the second Saints pick. Dallas is going to have some options. There goes Chris Olave, though, to the Green Bay Packers, and George Karlaftis to the Arizona Cardinals. Now, I apologize to everyone. I'm not going to zoom in. I'm not going to try because that's what broke us last time. But, Connor, as we deal with this Planet Fitness advertisement here from our friends at the Draft Network, this is what you want, right? If you're a Cowboys fan, both quarterbacks go. I mean, it's very possible that neither go, but at the very least, this pushed 2 more players that otherwise wouldn't have been there to you at 24.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because you figured with those quarterbacks going, you would probably have either one of the big 2 or 3 receivers falling to you, but it doesn't look like that happened. So, man, it's kind of tough because I'm looking at it. And I'm like, well, who fell? And it doesn't look like you had any. You got Linderbaum, you got Johnson, you got Green. So you got your 3 interior offensive line choices, but I don't see any of those big receivers or one of those top corners that fell to you. So a little bit of an interesting scenario here.
Right. These are the options that we are generally presented with, or anybody's generally presented with when they do one of these. You've got your choice of the guards. Tyler Linderbaum is there, who is somebody who most Cowboys fans would advocate for, but it seems like the team is not necessarily down to party with. And Treylon Burks is here again. I think we think that one of these receivers is going to be there, whether it's Burks or Chris Olave. You're right that nobody seemingly fell which would be the result of the two quarterbacks going. But you have options.
Right.
You know,
This would be like your trade back scenario from last week where you like Zion Johnson, you like Kenyon Green, you like Devin Lloyd. Like there's three names right there that are on the 30 visit list. You like Jahan Dotson, you like Tyler Linderbaum. They have to like him at some point. So Treylon Burks is still there. So this is where you'd be like, all right, cool, let's drop back 5 spots, pick up an extra pick, and then just pick whoever's left.
what do you want to do?
Let's look at the receivers one more time. I'm getting more and more interested in drafting a receiver in the first round and then picking one of the
because we've done that. We've gone that route, but we've also avoided it throughout our mock drafts.
Was it last week? What did we do? We did interior offense line, and then
last week we traded back and took Zion Johnson. I believe the first one we did, I believe we took Chris Olave, then we took Kenyon Green, and then Johnson. It was those are the three. I might have the order mixed up. You would think I would have the results in front of me. Actually, I think Kenyon Green was the first one, and then Chris Olave was the second.
So the reason I'd like it more is just because you're sitting here at 24 and you have good options at interior offensive line. Your options at receiver are pretty strong too. So I feel like you're kind of living in the best of both worlds at 24. But at 56, I just think it gets tougher. Your receivers go. They seem to go right before you pick a lot of the times in these simulators, which doesn't mean that's what's going to happen in real life. But then you look up in your interior offensive lineman, you still have 2 or 3 good quality options there. So I just feel like to get more bang for your buck, you could draft a good receiver here at 24, whether it's Jahan Dotson's, Treylon Burks, one of those top 2 guys, and then just see what's left there at 56 for your interior offensive line. Even though I will say that left guard is probably a much bigger need. So you're taking a little bit of a risk there because if it does get wiped out at 56, it could be
two things. One, I seen you tweet again on Twitter at Connor NFL Draft, and his tweet is his draft guide available for $5. Very well worth it. A very small price to pay for all the hard work that Connor put into it. But what you've been tweeting is that the receiver options 56 are not as quality as the guard options that there are, again, seemingly based on all these simulations and projections and whatnot. Now, where that's tough, and you just said it, is that the Cowboys have kind of pigeonholed themselves, which is what's made this whole thing a little bit more fascinating, is they generally do not do this. A strength of this team is generally to go in with no glaring need, and you can argue that they actually have 2 of them, which is the 2 that we're sitting here discussing. Now, they're obviously a little bit more set at wide receiver just because of the nature of that position, but they're not a team that has left themselves in a spot to draft for need, which is what I think you would have to argue they do if in this situation or a similar one they do take one of the guards over a would-be available wide receiver.
Yeah, and that's just where it comes in, because you're either going to draft the better player at 24 and feel less about making your team probably overall better after the first 2 days, or you're going to draft probably not quite as good as a player at 24, but feel better about your overall haul.
I would posit, is this not a similar conundrum to 2020 when they were it was Caleb on Chase on or bust, and then CeeDee Lamb fell to them and they took the better player.
Yeah. No, I mean,
similar,
but again, I feel like they were set up better that offseason to draft, what we call best player available. Right. Even though it was still a need, but
they were more set up to ignore the need there than they are now.
Right. You still had Randy Gregory, you still had DeMarcus Lawrence, you still had Dorrance Arm. That was just a year where you still had.
You had Aldon Smith. Depth. How could you forget? Seriously, the disrespect.
Yep. So they still had some depth there to where it was like, okay, we don't totally need. They plugged some of those holes leading up, and they had some guys on the roster.
Okay.
Let's let you let me decide. Let's let you decide this time. You drafted Jalen Weidemeyer a couple weeks ago.
I say we go wide receiver, simply in the name. Not to say like we're throwing these exercises away, but the fun has been to look at the yield, to look at the haul, because this is a fork in the road. So you see the kind of group you can assemble based off of different beginnings. And so we went interior offensive line last week. obviously we don't have Chris Olave, and I think that group that we put together, that was with PFF's simulator. Actually, I think that was the Draft Networks. I don't remember. They all blend together at this point, but it was interesting to compare that to the haul that we had the week prior. And so this isn't Chris Olave, so let's take Treylon Burks. Let's do it. Let's take Treylon Burks. Let's see what this group looks like at the end of it. See if we feel better, despite the fact that we're ignoring guard here with 2 options available in the first round.
And this is a spot too that we kind of talked about it. I see Pittsburgh sitting there at 20, who are in the need of a quarterback, while the Patriots, the Packers, and the Cardinals are not. And I wonder if they say, hey, we can jump back to 24, still get Desmond Ridder if we're set on drafting a quarterback, or whether it's Desmond Ridder or Sam Howell or whoever's there, you move up to 20 and get Chris Olave or Jamison Williams, 2 guys that went just right in front of you if you are set on taking a receiver. But, yeah, I mean, it comes down to Treylon Burks or Jahan Dotson. I like Burks more than Dotson, but I think both guys can play inside. Treylon Burks can play outside more than Dotson, but I think both. But we hear that they want to play CeeDee Lamb like that. We've heard both. Like, are they trying to move CeeDee Lamb away from the slot, or do they want to use him more in the slot? Because you've heard like Brian Broaddus and some of those guys say one thing, and then you'll hear Michael Gelkin and some of those guys kind of tweet things out that says something different. So it'd be nice to know if they wanted CeeDee Lamb to play more in the slot or more on the boundary, because that would give us a better idea of what they're trying to do. If they're just looking for a pure slot, Jahan Dotson out of Penn State's the better option, but Treylon Burks is also really good in the slot out of Arkansas. So either one of those guys I'd be happy with. I have Treylon Burks graded a little bit higher, so I'm in on the Treylon Burks train.
Burks it is. Done. By the way, Connor, I just saw a tweet while you were talking. I'm totally listening. But Taco Bell is bringing back the Mexican pizza as of May 19th. This is a huge win for society.
That is the best news I've heard all day.
I'm gonna tweet about this myself if you don't mind.
That was my go-to order from Taco Bell for a long time,
dude.
and my wife made fun of me over it for some reason. But
Mexican pizza, no tomatoes. I mean, because the tomatoes are a little too they're too dicey and blocky. I'm not whatever, but
no tomato, dude. That's my exact order.
Well,
so again, if you didn't take a receiver at 24, you would just be absolutely in shambles right now.
Well, why? Explain it as I navigate my tweet. And
their top graded receiver is Calvin Austin. It looks like mine would probably be Jalen Tolbert and then Khalil Shakir, and then actually it'd be Jalen Tolbert, Alec Pierce, and then Khalil Shakir for me, which are good players, but they're just not. I mean, Jalen Tolbert, I would consider right there at 56. I don't think they will, just because he's a small receiver.
Yeah.
But again, that's a rough little batch. Again, I just feel like those receivers are gonna fly, and they did. So I just think I think waiting for one of those guys to fall to 56 is gonna backfire on draft day.
Just to put in perspective, and if you can count these for me, Jahan Dotson goes right after us to the Bills. So again, to give you the viewer a perspective on that's the neck of the woods. Sky Moore goes right after the Tennessee Titans. I would love to see that. Watch Ryan Tannehill not get it to him. Tyler Linderbaum goes to the Bengals. If anybody cares, Zion Johnson went to the Bucks. And so day one ends, and I think that all day, we've made this joke before, but all day Friday morning, every Cowboys fan is saying, Dallas, get on the phone with Jacksonville, Detroit, go get Kenyon Green because he fell, whatever, blah, blah. And that would not be a bad idea. He lasts all the way to Chicago at 39. But so that's 2 receivers, right, that have gone after us. And let's see here. Christian Watson goes to the Colts. George Pickens goes to the Commanders. David Bell to the Saints. John Mechie to the Cardinals. How many is that, 5 or 6?
6. Yeah, 6 in between the 2 picks.
My point there is if you're doing a simulation at home, wherever you are, the drop off is about 6 from a quantitative standpoint, wide receivers in whatever consensus ranking you're looking at, and that's a big drop off.
Well, and it's say John Mechie, which in this scenario, if John Mechie does make it to 56, let's say John Mechie makes it to 56,
it's a huge gamble, right?
Well, right, and you're still taking the 12th. The 10th, let's just say most consensus, 10 through 15th best receiver over the 5th best interior, lineman. So you're getting deeper into that pool, which again, receivers fall. Don't get me wrong, but you're more likely to land on that interior offensive lineman who's closer at the top. So I feel like we're definitely kind of pigeonholed at left guard here. So I would say that we need to figure out. We'll look at the guard. We'll look at the interior offensive line and the tackles because I know sometimes they have some. They have some tackles that are
Stephen Jones's
guards.
coveted position flexibility.
Yep.
So who do you like here, Connor? You're looking at every offensive lineman here.
No, they don't combine them, so this is just tackles.
No, I'm sorry. I added both. That's my bad.
Yeah.
So here's the interior.
Yep. So you got Jamari Sawyer. We drafted him a couple weeks ago. Sean Ryan's there. I like Sean Ryan a lot. Darren Kennard out of Kentucky. I think he's a guy they had on their 30 visit list, if I'm not mistaken. Ed Ingram, LSU, he's probably a better option at 88 than he is here. So, I mean, they got a lot of good options. Do you have the 30 visit list pulled up?
I can get it for you. So
All right,
keep buying me time.
Yeah, I was just going to see if any of these guys at 56 were on that list because that'll kind of give us a look into maybe what they're looking at. It's second round interior offensive lineman. So for me, it would go Sean Ryan, Jamari Sawyer, Darian Kennard, Dylan Parham, and then Ed Ingram. I think that's how I have it graded out, which I like all those guys. Like I said, for me, Parham and Ingram are more third-round guys, and then Ryan, Sawyer, and Kennard are more second-round guys.
Matt Miller previously had a tweet with the 30 list for the Cowboys. He deleted it. So that is out. It's gone. But we have taken Sawyer before. I believe that, again, and these things are kind of chalk in that sense. That was the Olave draft. So we could go there here, and I feel like it'd be difficult if you want to take a look at the tackles, by the way. It'd be difficult to not feel good about that right now. I'd still not feel great about left guard, but I would feel understanding of the situation, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I knew that they liked Sean Ryan because I like Sean Ryan. So, like, when they kind of thinking lockstep with me there, that obviously doesn't always happen, but I mean, Sean Ryan's got position flexibility. He played left tackle at UCLA. He's a better guard prospect than he is tackle prospect. So I think he's kind of on the way to seeing an interior shift. So let's see. The interior offensive lineman that they brought in, Josh Azaduo from North Carolina. That's probably more of a third-round guy. They really didn't bring in any other like second-round caliber interior offensive lineman, which kind of hurts myself. But that doesn't mean they're not interested. They talked to a lot of these guys at the combine and stuff like that. So, man, let's draft Sean Ryan.
You sure?
We haven't drafted him yet. Again, he's got position flex that we know they love. He's one of the top graded players here on TDN's board. He'd be my top graded offensive lineman out of everybody we got still available. So for me, it would be Sean Ryan.
Okay, that's going to be the pick. I do want to let you know that Taco Bell tweeted back at me just as an update on that situation. But, okay, Sean Ryan is the pick. We've now addressed wide receiver. We've addressed guard. What's next? We could offensive line is still a big hole. Calvin Austin went to the Bucks, by the way. That sucks. Isaiah Spiller to the Lions. Sam Howell to the Giants. Trey McBride goes at 70 to the Jaguars. Sparing you your clothes. Isaiah Likely to the Broncos. This might be the time to take a tight end, Connor.
Yeah, I mean, I see.
There goes Jeremy Ruckert.
Oh, yeah, tight ends are rolling off pretty quick.
Nick Bonito goes 86 to the Raiders. Would you
So
like to see the available?
Yeah, tight ends and edges, I think, is where you're looking.
So Jelani Woods is here. It's kind of the spot if you want to take him. He is a favorite of many. Cade Otton. I don't think we've taken Cade before. Maybe we have.
No, he's a 30 visit, if I'm not mistaken.
He is.
So is Jelani Woods.
Sam Williams is here. We took him at the end of the third round with the pick we acquired from the Chiefs last week when we traded back. So this is, again, kind of another fork in the road. Do you want to get your tight end of the future? Is it more important to get another option at edge rusher? This is where, and I don't want to dwell on the past, but this is where not getting Randy Gregory Not getting that fully done haunts you, because if you did, you can take a tight end and feel totally fine right now.
Yeah, and I feel like we've drafted Sam Williams in like every draft we've done, so maybe we just go. Oh, maybe we go away from him in the third round to see what our
Right.
fourth round edges will look like. What do our linebackers look like? Just real quick, I know that's another position they're kind of looking at. Jojo Damon, Jesse Lakita, he's probably more of an edge than an actual traditional linebacker. Terrell Bernard, a smaller guy, I don't think they'll like, but I really like. Yeah, I think we're going to draft one of those tight ends, whether it's Cade Otton or Jelani Woods. Did they bring Dulcich as a tight end visitor? I don't think they did.
No,
they did not.
Mm-mm.
Let's go with. I mean, Cade Otton or Jelani Woods, I think, is where it would come down to here.
I think everybody wants it to be Jelani Woods. Everybody dreams of the athlete at that position. Like, when was, like, I mean, I'm asking seriously, when was the last time the Cowboys had an athlete at that position? Gavin Escobar? Is that like the most athlete that they've had there?
Yeah.
I mean, besides Rico Gathers.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, yeah, I would prefer Cade Otton over Jelani Woods. I like Jelani Woods, but I think he's more of a project than he's one of those guys that I think people have gotten really excited about in this draft process and have like completely ignored some of the, inconsistencies in his game because he's tested as like the best tight end prospect ever. So, I mean, I think for this team who needs more of a walk-in contributor at tight end too, Cade Otton makes more sense.
Done.
But I could see them drafting Jelani for the reasons you just mentioned, like the athletic side of it, wanting to get quicker, more explosive on offense.
Jalen Tolbert, by the way, made it all the way to 94.
That would be awesome if you went interior offensive line and let's just say you had an edge rusher fall to you or something.
Sam Williams went 99 to the Browns, by the way.
I'm hoping that our boy Isaiah Thomas is going to make it to us at 129.
The tight end run did happen, by the way. I don't know if you saw it. Khalil Shakir goes to the Browns. We took him last week. Kobe Bryant, who we've taken, goes to the Colts. Jojo Damon goes to the Dolphins at 125. Okay. I believe your wish has been granted, Connor, but just very quickly, again, we clearly missed out on Sam Williams. But how many tight ends go here? There's Greg, that's one. I saw several, I thought. There goes Jake Ferguson, that's two. Jelani Woods, there's three. We've got four tight ends go. So again, that's the spot. That, like, if you're gonna grab one, it can be no later than the third round because these are your options. Otherwise, I know you're thrilled about Jalen Watermeyer still being available here, but you have to, like we talked about, like if you want a premier wide receiver, you have to spend the 24th overall pick. If you want a day one contributor at tight end, you have to draft one in the top 100.
Yeah, no, I mean, like I said, out of this group, Charlie Collier out of Iowa State, I think is your best bet if you wait until 129, which I think that would be Charlie Collier 129 would be great value. I think he's a dude who can come in and play valuable role for you right away, a ton of snaps. So he would be my option if you wait.
There's a difference between great value and a great pick. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would be thrilled. I know a lot of people wouldn't because they'd look at this and go, he's their 200 and whatever ranked player, and you draft him at 129. But I think he was my 105th overall player in my guide. So you're getting him like almost around before, around later than.
Where did you want to look next, Connor? I'm still caught up in the fate. Okay. I'm still, pumped. There's Isaiah Thomas, the most recent guest on Talking the Draft, I believe.
Yes.
Everybody can listen to Talking the Draft, Connor's interviews with would-be draft prospects, available on the Blog on the Boys podcast network, wherever you get your podcasts. This was, like, to be honest, Connor, I mean, I think we're probably going to draft Isaiah Thomas, but my favorite interview that you've done. He was fantastic. He was, not to say that nobody else was into it, but he was maybe the most into it. Really, really talked about life at Oklahoma, life, among their defense. Like, it was one of your finer efforts. Yeah, no, I mean, like I said, I didn't start off, I didn't want him to start off with it. I didn't talk to him about starting off with it, but, he started off talking about how he mentioned the Cowboys by name as far as, they came in and worked me out. Leon Lett was there. Oh, and which was kind of funny because he gave a shout out to Charles Tapper. And I never would have thought that would have happened. So, yeah.
Yep.
Good
He didn't
times.
really know who Leon Lett was, which was kind of funny because he was just their defensive line coach. I think his name was like Leon something. And I was like,
Yeah. Like
yeah.
it's difficult to find somebody who knows who Charles Tapper is more quickly than they do who Leon Lett is. You know what I mean?
Oklahoma, man, Oklahoma.
But Isaiah Thomas is an option here. And I believe he said, shocker here, that nobody else is a harder worker in the draft than he is. I believe he said nobody's been through more adversity. So he's ready for the challenge at the very least. Again, you should go listen to the interview if you haven't yet. But are you considering anybody else over your boy?
I mean, not in this edge group for me. Like Dominique Robinson out of Miami, Ohio is a good player, but I still would prefer Isaiah Thomas.
You want to see
Alex
linebacker
Wright.
options?
Yeah, we'll peek at those. Should we look at corner real quick? I know some people have been banging the table with that.
Well, so first of all, I don't think there's a linebacker here that like really stands out just off first glance before we move to corner.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, Damone Clark would still be my best guy, but he's got some health stuff that's going to probably keep him out of year one.
We're looking at the prospects here, just so everybody's aware, at corner, just because we don't know what the situation is, what the future is for Kelvin Joseph with the Dallas Cowboys. Obviously, very serious situation surrounding Kelvin that was reported on late last week. We're just kind of all waiting to see what the reports and how the Cowboys and the NFL handles this. But it may turn out to be a bigger need for the Cowboys than they might have thought, just based on his potential availability. I think I speak for you, Connor, in saying that football is not the most important thing regarding Kelvin Joseph's life right now. There are seemingly way more pressing matters surrounding Kelvin. But there is a football reality for the Cowboys because the draft is so close. So they may need to hedge themselves at corner because if you remove Kelvin Joseph from the Cowboys cornerback room, who are your starters? Trayvon Diggs and Anthony Brown. Jordan Lewis is playing the slot.
Same thing that was last year.
Right.
That's why I tell people, like, yeah, you might need to add somebody that could play in year one. But
who's your depth though? Who's behind that?
I'm going to say this, and it's going to sound negative, but we can't keep talking about how good of a drafting team the Cowboys are as if they can't rely at all on Nashawn Wright or Josh Ball. Two guys they took relatively high last year.
Third and fourth round picks.
You have no depth at offensive tackle, no depth at corner. We can't talk out of both sides of our mouth and say the Cowboys are one of the best drafting teams in the NFL, and then in the next sentence go, but you can't trust Josh Ball and Nashawn Wright to play in year two. If that's the case, then those are misses, and you can't miss on guys in that top 4 rounds. Those are guys you need to step in and play.
I agree with you completely. People love to point out, well, Nashawn Wright had a touchdown last year. He did. He had a punt recovery for a touchdown. He did not have a defensive score or anything like that. But he did do more than Josh Ball. Josh Ball was a suspect picked himself by the Cowboys. They had some kind of character concern drafts. We talked about, or they had a character concern draft. Excuse me. We talked about that last year. Even Micah Parsons, there were some character concerns surrounding him at Penn State. Obviously, he has gone on to have an incredible NFL career so far. But you're right. I mean, it's difficult to rely on Nashawn Wright, which is an indictment. People love you, and like, not to go even further than you did, but people love to and anything Dan Quinn does or touches is gold. And I don't want to say or imply that Dan Quinn sucks, but that was a Dan Quinn pick. You know what I mean? Like maybe don't let people used to kill the Cowboys for letting Rod Marinelli draft. Maybe don't let Dan Quinn draft. Like why let your scouts scout.
Well, somebody said that when I was asking questions on Twitter yesterday. I think it was that somebody said something like, or I posted a mock draft. That's what it was. And so I was like, Dan Quinn not getting any of his corners. And I was like, well, he kind of got 2 last year because Kelvin Joseph was another, bigger, long, athletic corner. And then they drafted Nashawn Wright as a bigger, long, straight line speed wasn't bad, but he didn't test, his athletic score didn't come out good. So he got 2 of those guys last year. So, you can't just – that's what hurt us with Marinelli, where it was like every year you were giving them 2 picks and they very rarely worked out. So let's go with Isaiah Thomas here out of Oklahoma. I mean, he fits a lot of what they look for. I mean, he kind of is a version of like not as big, but David Irving. He's 6'6", 260 pounds. He ran well. He's long. He's got some Randy Gregory to him. Just not he doesn't have that slipperiness or suddenness that Randy Gregory has yet, But we know projecting those Oklahoma defensive linemen and edge rushers into an NFL scheme is always a little tough. So I like Thomas quite a bit, especially this late in the draft. And I think he could. I mean, he had production at Oklahoma, and I think he's got a bright future ahead of him.
Well said. Okay, so Jalen Weidermeyer goes right before us in the 5th round. Just a huge bummer. First of 4 for 5th round picks here. I don't know if you saw it in your breakdown of Isaiah, but Alec Pierce went to the Bengals. Always cool. Like when something like that happens, I get a little kick out of that. Another former guest of Talking the Draft. I thought it was so interesting. I mean, it makes sense. But when you asked him who he compared his NFL game to, he said AJ Green. I mean, I don't know that I've ever heard anybody say that before. But again,
that's my favorite part of doing those is when somebody because most people just say Aaron Donald or Von Miller
right.
or the best player at the position you can think of, and then you get some people who are like, no, it's something like that. And it's just like AJ Green used to be fantastic.
Again, it was. I just I don't know that anybody's standing for AJ Green. It was just a really weird, moment. But all right, we have 4 5th round picks to work with here, Connor. We've addressed wide receiver, guard, tight end, and edge rush. We have not addressed the offensive line. We have not addressed the secondary. We have very often taken a running back in the 5th round. So we have some picks to play with here.
And this is our first 5th round pick, right?
Correct.
All right, yeah. So I think we need to look at linebackers, we need to look at running backs, and we need to look at offensive tackles.
Here's your linebacker group.
Ooh, DeMarco Jackson's still there. I love DeMarco Jackson.
So that's just let's get set the stage. We said linebackers. We said tackles. Oops.
Yeah, and corners and running backs.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything here that's really getting you pumped.
Kellen D, shout out Arizona State. I don't think he's going to play. I don't think he's going to play tackle in the NFL, but that might be an interesting option there.
And then
let's look at your interior lineman. Maybe there's a center that's fallen a little bit. Joshua Nzeduo out of North Carolina, he was a 30 visit, and Luke Fortner out of Kentucky. I think he'll probably go a little bit higher than this, but those two guys are interesting options here.
So let's take a look at running back before we make the pick. I believe Sincere McCormick was on 105 through the Fan. Am I making that up? I believe he was a few months ago. We took Hassan Haskins last week, who's also on Talking the Draft. So, I mean, not to belittle any of these players, but you take anybody's a running back at this point. 4 5th round picks. We're going to throw one at this position. We'll feel fine about whichever player it winds up being. I think tackle is probably, or offensive line, however you want to look at it, is probably the first play here of the 5th round picks.
Can we look at the corners real quick?
I suppose.
I just want to see if Jalen Armour Davis from Alabama is still around. I don't think so. Tariq Castro Fields out of Penn State's an interesting player. Taylor Britt out of Nebraska, good player. So still some good corners around.
We're picking again in 12 picks, so just so everybody's aware.
One of those interior offensive linemen probably make the most sense. Luke Fortner, I don't think he wasn't a 30 visit guy, but he's a guy who he's relatively athletic, needs to work on playing a little bit stronger, but he played a lot of those positions at Kentucky. He can kind of play interior offensive line, guard, or center. So I think that's probably the most interesting name to me there, because I feel like he could probably come in and maybe even compete some with Biotish as your center.
Wow. This would make 3 consecutive drafts of 4th round offensive linemen. Not that that's uncommon, but Biotish, who they traded up for, and then Josh Ball, as you mentioned, and now Luke Fortner. Not the 4th round picks are amazing, but you got to hit on something there, because I don't know that anybody feels like they've even hit on Tyler Biotish yet. Just because he started doesn't mean they've absolutely hit. You know what I mean?
It's when we hear it a lot, but at some point you got to draft. Terrence Steele, I guess, is your one you would throw out there, but you got to draft somebody that isn't a first round player that can play at close to a Pro Bowl level. It feels like it's a lot of swing and a miss right now.
All right, so Luke Fortner.
That would be my best player available here, and I think, like I said, I mean, center is a position we kind of like talked about with CeeDee Lamb earlier. Like we've heard both sides of the story, where some people are like they love Tyler Biotish, and then some people are like, yeah, they're trying to upgrade at center. So,
okay, so nobody really went that I think we're heartbroken about. Linebacker, DeMarco's still there. We have not addressed that. We're picking again in 9 spots. You gotta imagine they're feeling antsy about not having a linebacker at this point. I mean, granted they have a lot of needs. That might be the play here, I think. And again, if you just go off TDN's, consensus board, this is the appropriate value. Not that 12 picks earlier is like a big difference, but this is the spot.
yeah, no, I mean, I like DeMarco Jackson, Appalachian State linebacker. Good athlete, probably more of a two-down player right away than a step in and start every for you. But I think he's got some starting traits to him. So I would like that here. I think he could play some snaps for you in year one.
Hassan Haskins went to the San Francisco 49ers. Sincere McCormick went a little while ago to the New York Jets. So we have 2 picks over the next 3 here, Connor. We did want to address running back, and I think probably throw a pick at corner. So here is corner. Here are your options. If any one of them makes you feel great.
I love Tariq. I mean, between Taylor Britt, that's not Taylor Britt, is it? That's Taylor Stewart out at USC. I thought it was
Correct.
Taylor Britt out of Nebraska. Okay, well, that changes my mind. I mean, I like Chase Lucas. He's just got an injury history. And then let's look at the running backs real quick. Tariq Castro-Fields is my favorite corner there right now. The South Carolina White. Nothing.
Yeah.
Ty Chandler out of North Carolina. You don't see Devontae Price on there, the Florida international guy, do you?
I don't, but here he is.
Where's he at?
He's 255 right here. I don't know if you can see my mouse or not. Yeah, I've highlighted his draft option.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I like Devontae Price a lot. I think he's a guy who's going to go probably in the 5th round and he would probably be more of your Tony Pollard role than your Ezekiel Elliott role. But I mean, he's kind of more of a change of pace guy than a carried every down. But
do we want to take Tariq first?
I would in this scenario just because I think he's got the value there. I mean, he doesn't have the arm length. I was just pulling up his arm length measurement because I know that they're big on 32-inch arm corners, and he's right under 31 inches. But he's 6 foot, 195 pounds. So he's kind of got it's like be like your Chido Ozie, I think, type of guy in this defense where he a little bit under the prototype, but I think he's a good football player. And that's at this point, that's what they're probably trying to add.
All right, done. And the Lions take Danny Gray, incidentally, in between. So now is the time to get your running back, Connor. I'm being so careful. I really don't want to accidentally move. That would be awful. We're so deep in this. Devontae Price, are you ready for this?
I am, yeah. I like Devontae Price a lot.
Oh, man, I really actually almost moved back. That would have not been fun.
Brutal. Yeah, look at a kicker here.
Well, you got 1 pick. Justin Ross makes it all the way down to 184.
Actually, can you draft kickers on TDNs? I don't know if they have specialists.
I don't think so, actually. Let's see.
I don't think so either.
Nope.
Okay.
Wow, the disrespect. Well, this would have been where we were looking at a kicker.
Yeah. Cade York out of LSU, Cameron Dicker out of Texas.
Well, you have 1 pick left, Connor. So where do you want to look? We haven't doubled it the receiver.
Yeah, I think they're definitely going to do that. So let's look at the receivers.
There's Reggie Robertson, who we've talked about a billion different times. Kevin Austin, who we took on our very first mock out of Notre Dame. You got 1 pick. I mean, spend it how you will.
Flip a coin here for Kevin Austin or Tyquan Thornton. You're betting on the traits. Both of those guys are big and athletic. I would probably go Kevin Austin here. Actually, I think I have Thornton graded higher.
that what you want to do?
Yeah, let's do Tyquan Thornton. I mean, 6'2", he runs a 4.3. I mean, dude's, he's got the traits. Just got to kind of put them all together. So,
Look at that. How you feeling now that it's over?
pretty good. I mean, I wish I knew how much they wanted to address corner now, because that's like the one thing that you didn't. I like Tariq Castro Fields. I think
Right.
he could play for you in year one.
I mean,
But
not to like. I mean, not to be this guy, but Richard Sherman's still an option, right? Like if they're really truly that desperate, like
right,
there are free agent options that can buy them a year. You know what I mean? This was something that seemingly caught them by somewhat of a surprise a little bit before the draft. So it's difficult, like you said, to just like now completely totally reprioritize things. So like, I'm fine, kind of whoever you bring in, whoever you draft, whatever is not somebody who's going to be an impact player anyway. So I'm fine, kind
right.
of kicking the can down the road.
Yeah, no, I mean, like I said, I feel like you got a starting receiver in Treylon Burks who can play inside out. I hope that Kellen Moore can use him the way he should be used, where you're getting him involved in the screen game, you're handing him the football out of the backfield, you're using him on jet sweeps. I mean, he can just do a lot of really fun things for your offense. So, I mean, for me, Treylon Burks, he might not be my best receiver in this class, but in the right role, I think he can be the most dynamic, if that makes any sense. And then Sean Ryan, which I just don't think gets enough love in this class. He played left tackle at UCLA. You watch him go up against Kayvon Thibodeau and stuff like that, and he does have some good snaps against Kayvon Thibodeau at tackle. So I feel like you put his size, nastiness, length, athleticism along the interior, and he just turns into a better player. So I feel like you got your starting left guard there. Kate Otten, starting caliber tight end. I think he can be your tight end 2 right away. Obviously, he's got some medical. I think he injured his foot at the Senior Bowl, I want to say it was, and he hasn't really done much since then. But I mean, I think that's just precautionary in this process. And then I like Isaiah Thomas a lot. I think he's a guy who can play, a Dorrance Armstrong role for you, help cut some of those snaps down for those guys, share snaps with Dante Fowler and Dorrance Armstrong at right defense.
Dale
I
Basham,
really
how could you?
Terry Basham, yeah, they got some guys there for sure. Wish that and that's like coming out of this draft, one or the other. I'm gonna be like, we still don't have a strong right defensive end, because unless they take one at 24, like you could get a Bonito or something like that fall to you at 56, but at the same time, like we keep pounding the table for it, but like you have to almost go wide receiver left guard within those first 2 rounds. You almost have to. So even if you do have a Bonito or Ebiketie or one of those guys fall to you at 56 you don't expect, it's just tough to see them doing that because they don't have a left guard that can play, and they don't have a good option at receiver while Michael Gallup's coming back. So,
Would you give up when you look at this? This is my last question on this. Would you give up Kate Otten if you could swap out Sean Ryan for Kenyon Green? I mean, if we talk about like now that the simulation's over, so you can look at like what the cost is. I mean, would you give up that 3rd round pick to move up on day 2 to take Kenyon Green? Because in this simulation he fell. Whichever one, if one of them fell, one of them falls out of the 1st round. Would you give up Kate Otten? And obviously the rest looks a little bit different, but that's the quality you're giving up.
right. I mean, I would, because I feel like you can still sign I don't even know if he's still free, but just I'm using a name like you could sign a Kyle Rudolph. I don't know if he's still free agent or not, but like
I
you can
don't
sign
think
a
he
guy.
is, but I do think I think Jared Cook is free. Is a free?
Okay,
So that's the
that's
name that's
a guy
been
like that that's
right.
been a successful veteran that you're not asking to come in and be your best tight end. Just block some, run some, be a better option than. I mean, even I mean, I'm not saying re-sign Blake Jarwin, but it's not like Blake Jarwin set the world on fire as your second tight end the last 2 years. He's been injured a lot, so you've been using other dudes as your tight end too. So just finding a somewhat of an upgrade there if you don't get it through the youth movement here in the draft. So I would trade Kate Otten and Sean Ryan for Kenyon Green, just because I think Kenyon Green is a stud that he didn't run real fast at the combine, so people don't love him all of a sudden, even though for a while it was like, there's no way he'll be there at 24. And then the combine happened, and it's like, oh, we could get him at 56. So the combine's silly, and people are silly. He didn't really move much for me. So I would be thrilled to land I think he's my 11th overall player at 45th overall. That would be a great pick.
I believe the Cowboys handed out number 89, so Blake Jarwin not returning, just in case anybody had their hopes up for that. But anyway, well, Connor, another fantastic effort. One more of these before the draft ultimately comes and happens. We have a lot more prepared for every single person out there as it pertains to the draft and all things Dallas Cowboys. Again, Connor's NFL Draft Guide is a must-have. $5. It is his pinned tweet at Connor NFL Draft. Connor, what am I forgetting or missing to plug? I mean, plug away so people can go get it. It's $5. Very, very, very well worth it.
Yep, $5. I think there's 121 scouting reports in it or something like that. So I do all scouting reports.
You also have all the links to the interviews that we've talked about at the very end of this too. So it's everything kind of consolidated in one spot.
Yeah, somebody said the other day that was just worth the $5, so they could just copy and paste. They didn't have to scroll through Spotify or whatever and search everything. So it's got scouting reports on my top 100 guys, so 1 through 100. Some of my favorite guys kind of sprinkled in throughout day 3. I did a board on 225 guys rankings. Got that ranking. Which that's always fun to just keep on tab during the draft, and you can kind of be like, okay, we're in the 3rd round and there's still a top 50 player available, and so you kind of look at it that way. Positional rankings, so some of the guys that didn't make the top 225 that I still have ranked as a quarterback, or mainly it's just quarterback and maybe a safety or two that didn't make the top 25, top 225, but still ended up making it into that top 10. I do a final mock draft in there too for all 32 teams. It's not just Cowboys related. And then I had some sleepers in as well. Some guys that you've either probably never heard of or guys that you don't know a lot about.
You do have an all sleeper list. You've broken it down. It's really fun. And it's something we'll reference a lot throughout the draft on our coverage here on the channel and everywhere. Otherwise, Connor, sorry about the Yankees, but at least they won the game you went to.
That's right. We were trying to figure it out. I don't think they've lost but 2 games that me and my wife been to over the last 7 or 8 years or whatever. So if Hal wants to give us season tickets and let us just come out so they'll win more baseball games, I will take I'll take the punishment.
What do you think of the Astro Space City jerseys? Objectively,
haven't seen them. I don't pay attention to the cheers.
That's a lie. Anyway, all right, everybody. Connor said it all. He did it all. Let us know what you think about your mock draft. He's on Twitter at Connor NFL Draft. I am on Twitter at RJ Ochoa. You can always leave us a comment down below. Connor, the final words belong to you. Make them great, or everybody will hate you forever.
Stop thinking good football players are bad because they didn't run fast at the combine. That is for Treylon Burks. That is for Kenyon Green. That is for a lot of guys. So don't let the combine testing numbers, your second favorite player running faster than your first favorite player, just completely remove you from liking good football players, because the fast guy rarely ends up being the best guy.
Also, welcome back, Mexican Pizza. Thanks a lot for joining us, everybody. We'll see you next time.